All-Inclusive is brought to you by Destination Everywhere, a company dedicated to travelers of all abilities. My name is Eleonora, and I'm your host. And a big warm welcome to our second guest on the All-Inclusive podcast, Josh Grisdale from Tokyo, Japan.
Hello, thank you for having me.
No, thank you. Thank you for taking part. Now, Josh is a Canadian who's fallen in love with Japan and has been living there since 13 years.
Yeah, 2007. It's how long I've been living here. I first came back in 2000, and I came a couple other times after that. So my first experience in Japan was about 20 years ago.
Wow. And you like to say you're not an expat, but a naturalized citizen.
Yes, that's right. Because actually, I am a naturalized citizen. I gave up my Canadian citizenship and I became a Japanese citizen about 4 years ago, almost 5 years ago, I guess, in 2016. So I love Japan that much that I'm willing to be a full-time member. So.
Oh, this is really great because you've been working as a webmaster for Azali Group, which is a service for elderly care, education, and medicine. But we have you here because you are the maximum expert on accessibility in Japan. And I'm actually wondering why the tourism board doesn't just hire you to do this, because you know everything.
Well, I actually do have a good relationship with the tourism board in Japan. I'm on a couple of committees, and so encouraging accessible tourism. So I'm got my foot in the door, anyways, or my wheel in the door. So I'm hoping to maybe someday, full-time job.
Yeah, because you really know everything. I mean, your website accessiblejapan.com is the resource for people who want to come and visit. And I'm guessing you get a lot of requests too, and lots of emails and messages from people who want to come and visit.
Yeah, well, it's slowed down this past year for some reason or other, but because of otherwise I'm quite busy with helping people find the information they need. I'm not a tour operator, so I need to let people know that sometimes. But I'm actually, because this is sort of a part-time hobby of mine. So what I wanted to do was sort of when I first came to Japan back in 2000. There was really no information on accessible travel. So you would have, because it was back in 2000, there weren't really many websites. There wasn't like a TripAdvisor or those kind of websites to find lots of information. And so you'd only have this information from guidebooks. And guidebooks are only maybe 300 pages long. So they're not going to dedicate a lot of information for, accessibility. So you might get something like, Japan is very crowded and difficult to get around in a wheelchair. And that's maybe all you'd find if you ever did find anything at all. So one of the goals for Accessible Japan is to create the website that I wish I had 20 years ago, sort of as an all-purpose general guide to getting the best out of Japan to help you prepare for your trip, but also just, some tips for, when you're here, places to see, places to stay, stuff like that.
Super. And you did more, actually, because accessiblejapan.com you created in 2015, but then 2 years later you created a community for accessible travel, so a worldwide community, which was called Accessible Travel Forum, and which then since 2020 is called Tabifolk. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Sure. Well, actually, it's just quite related to Accessible Japan. I think that one of the lessons I learned a lot from building Accessible Japan. It actually started more as a blog, and then I get all these questions from people, and I think, well, if somebody has the desire to go and write an email, then there's probably 10 other people that have the same question that aren't going as far as writing an email. So probably behind every question, there's 10 other people wanting to know the same thing. So because of that, the website sort of took its shape. Sort of pushed me up beyond my own experience because, I use a power wheelchair. I have cerebral palsy, so I use that to get around. And so that's where my expertise is. So I don't know things about, using a guide dog in Japan. So it was because I was asked questions about those kind of things that, I developed the resources on the site. And so at first, with Accessible Japan, I was doing everything by email. And in addition to getting, those different emails, is that I would get often the same questions over and over again. Um, no means a complaint or anything like that, but I was realizing that communicating by email, it really helps for the one person involved, and they get the information they need. But again, because there are probably 10 other people that have the same question, it's kind of unfortunate that it ends with that conversation. So I figured that having something more online, that people can sort of just, who are looking up information or just want to peek, can also see that information and learn something from it. And if they want, they can jump in. So I thought having some sort of a community would be great. So that's where the Accessible Travel Forum started, and I quickly realized that the name was way too long. And it was, yeah, I didn't get annoyed every time I had to type it in. So I hate to write my email address, info at accessibletravelforum.com, and also, just thinking about, a lot of, companies, there's, the name sort of goes away after a while. After you keep saying it, it sort of just becomes a sound like, Facebook or something like that. If you say Facebook, it sounds really, really silly if you think about it. But it's just sort of become a word now. So I wanted to sort of create a shorter name that had some of the roots in there. So tabi actually means it's not the cat. Everybody thinks it's the cat, but it's not it's not a tabi cat. It's tabi means journey in Japanese, and folk means people. So it's people on a journey. Is where the name comes from. And it's sort of like Facebook, in a way that people can join, create their own profiles. They can join different groups, and they can ask questions or share information. Share funny videos. Or the other day you shared an image that was kind of funny, and it's it had some good points in it, and other people ask questions about where the best place to get some ramen in Tokyo is, or something like that. So that's the other site I ran. So it's Tabi Folk.
Cool. So what is the best place to get ramen in Tokyo now?
Right now, probably.
Now you have to answer. Now you have to tell us.
Well, right now, with all the restrictions on travel, wherever you can get ramen, it's probably the best place to get it. So.
Okay. Good answer. Democratic answer. But I want to know something about you as a traveler now, because you've done a lot for other travelers who are who want to come to Japan, and then consult your website and community. But I really want to know about you. What do you like when you travel? What do you look for? What's like your favorite holiday or trip experience?
Yeah, I think one big difference with being in Japan and living and working in Japan is that we don't get a lot of time for vacation, and if we do go on vacation, it's very, very short. So I talk to people who are coming to Japan, and I hear that oh, we're going to be here for 2 weeks or something like that. And to me, that seems unbelievable. How do you not get bored after 2 weeks? But so for us, it's here in Japan. You'd maybe go for 2 or 3 days to a place, even if it's in another country. So last time I went home to visit my family, I went all the way to Toronto in Canada. It's about a 14-hour flight to get there, and I stayed for 3 days, and then I came back.
Wow.
But I mean,
that was a long holiday.
Yeah, that was. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, for myself, I need to get that time off work, but then also I travel with a personal care assistant, and so they also have difficulty getting that much time off work. So it's sort of the happy compromise is it's not as long, but at least we can both go kind of thing. So yeah, so for myself, I've not been on too many tours of places. I tend to be a bit more my own pace kind of thing. So I'll come up with the things I want to see, and then I'll try to look up the information to see what's necessary. And so it's that's usually the way I do things. For me, the biggest thing I think is often transportation, because I have a heavy power wheelchair. I can't just fold it up, put it in the back of a taxi, or I can't walk at all. So yeah, I can usually get by with most hotel rooms, so that's sort of number two on the list, kind of thing. Whereas if I can't get to the hotel, or if I can't get to um, a destination I want to see, then that's the biggest challenge for me. So trying to find that information can be quite a challenge at times, and the way different countries do things is always different. So it takes a lot of legwork to try to figure out what it's going to be like. But for myself, the most interesting place I've been to, I think, was Mongolia. So I went there. It wasn't something I planned myself, so that was a little bit of help. But before I worked at where I'm working right now, I used to work at an NPO that took wheelchairs that were unused in Japan, um, because you can get a wheelchair every 3 years through the system here. So there's a lot of people, a lot of used wheelchairs that don't have any use afterwards, that are available, and so one of the ladies that I knew, her son was disabled, and she saw all these wasted wheelchairs at the school, his school for disabilities, people with disabilities, and she wanted to make some use of them. So what they would do is they collect the old wheelchairs, they would clean them and repair them, and then they'd send them to other parts of Asia where they needed wheelchairs. So different parts of Philippines, Cambodia, Thailand, etc. So if there's somebody who's wanting a wheelchair, then they try to get it to them, and they would send them by sending them as extra luggage of somebody who was going to that destination anyways. So if somebody's going to, say, Cambodia for business or for humanitarian work or something like that, instead of a suitcase, they would take a wheelchair with them. And then
That's brilliant. That's super smart.
yeah.
That's so smart and cost effective.
Yeah, exactly. So, especially again because the Japanese travelers, a lot of times, even if they're for business or whatever, they don't usually take a lot of luggage because they're just going for such a short amount of time. So for the international, luggage allowances, they usually have extra space. So anyway, but we organized a trip to Mongolia, and we went as a group of the staff, and we took a full container full of wheelchairs. And so actually, I had, because of the infrastructure in Mongolia at that time, I don't know what it's like now, but taking my power wheelchair was sort of out of the question. So I ended up using a manual wheelchair, which is actually going to be one of the wheelchairs we gave to people. So I used it and then at the airport I gave it to one of the people there. So so it was a really interesting, eye-opening experience for me to see the different challenges in different parts of the world if you have a disability, in a place that's not as accessible as the place where I live now. So that's probably one of my most memorable experiences.
Cool. And so what did you really, really love about Mongolia? Did you get to see like all, the nature? You went out a bit in the wild, or how was it?
Yeah,
I've never been, so I'm very curious.
yeah, no, it's really interesting to see. A lot of because I guess there's a lot of Soviet presence back a number of decades ago. So there's sort of that mixture of that with the nomadic lifestyle and the Chinese influence as well. So it was really quite fascinating. And the people were very, very generous. And we went to, as a group, we went to this nomadic, it's a yurt, it's called. It's the tent that people would live in. Yeah, so we got to see what it was like inside, and the lady who was showing it, she and her husband had recently passed away, so that was sort of her method of income. And but she had made some homemade horse yogurt. So everybody got a cup of it, and she came over, she started feeding me, and then because I finished it all, because that's a polite thing to do. But then it's like, oh, you finished, okay, I'll get you another one. So I had two very large portions of horse yogurt. So that was kind of an interesting experience. But it's such a it's a really beautiful country. I'd love to go back and see what it's like. But there are also so many other countries, places I'd like to go see. So it'll have to wait, I guess. I'll finish all the other ones.
But now the horse yogurt is going to stay in my mind for like a whole day. What does horse yogurt taste like?
It tasted fairly much like yogurt. I guess it's probably that much. But the food was a little bit different than you get in in Japan, for example. But so it was a lot of meat and yogurt was basically a lot of the food. Our guide was somebody who had lived in Japan as an exchange student. So she said that she's always so surprised that the variety of food available in Japan, because in Mongolia there's maybe like 5 different types of meals, and that's sort of the common ones. So she was surprised at that. So, but a lot of use of yogurt.
Horse yogurt is the best, really. Though I will go around Brussels looking for horse yogurt.
Yeah.
So I have a question, because your interview is very much linked with the one before. 2 days ago, I had a really nice chat with Camille Gungor, and I know that you two have a connection as wanderlusters, even if in 2 different, completely different parts of the world. Can you tell us about the story of how you two met?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's one of the exciting things about working in the accessible travel industry is that you get a lot of opportunities to make new friends. I think that it doesn't exist in a lot of other industries. So my Camille is one of them. And back, I don't remember when it was, a couple of years ago, anyways. It was not long after I started Accessible Japan, I think. Him and his sister and one of their friends were planning on a trip to Japan, and they found the website, and we were corresponding, and they need to get some rental equipment. That's one of the big challenges that I try to solve when Accessible Japan, is that a lot of the facilities for renting places are renting equipment like hoists or wheelchairs are available, but they're not really. The idea of accessible travel or international accessible travel is somewhat new to Japan, I think, and so because of that, a lot of companies, have very big potential for business opportunities are completely missing it because they're focused on the way things have always been done. So trying to help them try get the equipment that they needed for their trip, and so we corresponded a number of times, and then it's sort of like they're going to be coming soon, so I said, well, have a good trip. And then I was out and about one time in Tokyo, and I was at a station, and I was going to use the elevator to go up to the ground. And I noticed in front of me there were 3 foreigners in wheelchairs. But I was like, that's pretty unusual for Tokyo. So I was like, I wonder if it's Camille and his sister and friend. And so I thought, okay, well, I don't usually, just randomly ask people who they are. But I was waiting for them at the elevator. I was like, you're not Camille, are you? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, oh, I'm Josh, So I mean, it's huge. I don't know what the population of Belgium is, but the greater Tokyo,
11 million, the whole country.
Well, the greater Tokyo area is probably about 30 million people, and Tokyo proper, I think, is about 13 million. And so in that huge city, they're only here for 2 weeks or something like that, and they're in other cities as well. We happened to bump into each other at the elevator and train station from Tokyo. So, we chatted for a while and we took a picture, and we've been in touch ever since. So, so there's your connection. So we're all linked.
Yeah, this was so cool because the first 2 episodes, and they're linked, and I didn't know this. So, but Camille was very proud of his trip to Japan, and but he did credit that he really used your content and the website and your help to organize it, and it's actually one of his tips that he gave to fellow travelers.
Mm-hmm.
He said, exploit your friends living in other countries because they will take you to cool places, and they will help out with practical details.
Yeah.
Do you exploit your friends too, or do you do everything by yourself?
Mutual exploitation, I think. Yeah. So I think the amazing things about the internet, and like comparing it to when I first came to Japan 20 years ago, and there really wasn't the same kind of internet infrastructure. And it's such a great equalizer for people with disabilities, without disabilities, to just be able to connect in a different way and to have a whole new level of access to information that we didn't have before. And even if we're not traveling, we have like things like this, like podcasts, where we can learn from others and hear stories. And so it's really a powerful tool, I think, for people with disabilities.
Sure, totally agree. What have you done in 2020? Where have you been in 2020? In this terrible year.
Yeah. Well, Japan, we don't have the same kind of lockdown like a lot of places in Europe. Part of it is in terms of like the law, it's difficult. They can't really do that. So there's no way to actually fine people for things that haven't been set up. Like you can't do sort of okay, from this date on we're going to start giving fines to people without actually passing a law and stuff like that. So a lot of it has been more guidance. So right now we're in a state of emergency again, and basically they're asking restaurants to close by 8 p.m. And people to not go out unless they need to, but there's no real enforcement of it. So I think unfortunately the first time we had a state of emergency, people were a lot more serious about it. But this is we've been living this for too long now, and I think people are quite used to it, so that it's not quite the same this time. But which actually meant that I had to cancel a trip this weekend, actually. So I'll go back a bit first. So at the beginning of 2020, I actually only traveled in Japan. So I went to Okinawa, which is the southern islands of Japan. So I went there twice actually last year. And it's sort of like Japan. They call it Japan's Hawaii, but it's tropical. So the palm trees and beaches and stuff like that. So probably one of my favorite parts of Japan. It's also quite neat because it's got a different history. So it's Japan, but it's also not Japan. So it sort of feels a bit like going to a different country. And then I went to a place called Totori, which is sort of on the Sea of Japan side of Japan. It's not very big. It's actually the entire population of the province is smaller than my city. And so through my current work at Azali, one of the people who's a politician there, he used to work for a tea company, and we were their customer. So we were somehow related to them anyways. But so they want to promote tourism, and they're actually quite progressive in terms of accessible tourism. But one of the challenges they have is getting the information out there. So they asked me to come as a quote unquote influencer. So I got a free trip to Totori and got to meet the governor and got to see a lot of the different places. Actually, Totori has a desert, or sorry, sand dunes, I guess you call it. So it's the only sand dunes in Japan. So if you go in the middle of it, it feels like you're in the Sahara because it's very, very
cool
sand dunes. But then you sort of cross one of them, and then all of a sudden it's the ocean. So it's kind of an interesting place to be. So I went there, and then I got back, and pretty much immediately after that, it was a state of emergency. So didn't go a lot of places after that. But then, as part of the promotion of like the economy here, they had a go-to travel campaign in Japan. So where the government was encouraging people to travel, and they would give up to 30% discounts on travel, as well as you'd get maybe another 20% worth of vouchers that you could use in that local community. So I went 2 different places on that, but then it's gotten a bit more severe again here in Tokyo. So I was supposed to go to Kochi, which is another prefecture, but a bit further in south of Japan, as a tour monitor to go check out a new accessible tour. But considering the place I work with, the elderly, very close proximity, and it didn't feel like a good timing to go. So I canceled that for now, but hopefully I have opportunity to go again. If it was just me and traveling, then I'd probably consider it. But then right now, because I work in a facility with over 150 people who are high risk categories, it probably wasn't really the best timing. So I've done some traveling. Would love to do more. I'd love to get out of Japan as well, but I'm sort of waiting for the right time. And it's not really possible, I guess, right now, leaving Japan.
Okay. So you get invited a lot around Japan. I mean, you don't even have time to go abroad because you're too busy promoting Japan accessible locations and destinations in Japan. This is really cool.
Yeah, no,
it's lots of free holidays.
Yeah, free holidays. Yeah, lots of food and hot springs and stuff like that. So that's quite nice. But The most encouraging thing to me is not the free vacation, but the thought that, or the fact that a lot more places are thinking about accessible tourism now. There really is quite something new in Japan. So I'm very eager to share that with other people.
So this is great. You're there at the right moment. You're really the man for this moment when Japan is actually opening up to accessible tourism. And I mean, it's great because you've already established yourself because you really know your topic. So this is
the timing was great because it's not. I don't know what's going to happen now, but the Olympics were supposed to happen last year, right? So I think in a large part of it, the movement towards accessibility and accessible travel, I think it's definitely related to the Olympics and Paralympics. So I'm very, very thankful for that opportunity. Actually, I'm actually going to be one of the torchbearers for the Olympics. So they're going to attach the torch to my wheelchair. So I'll be one of the torchbearers for Tokyo, if it happens.
Yeah, exactly. My question was, what's the discussion now? Well, what are the updates? Is it going to take place in 2021 or is it going to be Tokyo 2022?
Well, right now the plans are for Tokyo 2021, but at the moment there's sort of public sentiment is that maybe 80% of people either say to postpone it or stop. So the government, of course, doesn't want to do that, and the Olympic Committee and Paralympic Committee as well are trying to think of different ways to do that. From what I understand, in about March or April, they'll make a final decision for this year. So whether that will be, so I think postponing it again is not possible. So it would be either have it or not have it at all. So.
That's awful.
It'd be a shame.
Fingers crossed.
But at the same time, a lot of the infrastructure changes have already been made. So that's in terms of accessible travel. That's a lot of the biggest part of the goal that's been achieved, I think.
Yeah, but it happened also in previous Olympics, where the Paralympics really pushed accessibility and awareness in the countries where they were held. So it's really it's a good influence. And I don't know if have you seen the documentary about the Paralympics, the one on Netflix?
No, no. I'm actually.
It's really cool.
I think
also there's an Italian athlete, so I'm very proud.
Because the first one was in Italy, right?
No, I don't remember that exactly, but there are a few people who are featured in the documentary, and one of them is Bebe Vio, who is a fencing athlete. She's a fencing champion from Italy. So yeah.
You have to check Wikipedia afterwards, but if I remember correctly, I think Rome was one of the first ones where they had it, but not as the Paralympics, but they had some corresponding games, and then Tokyo in 1964 was the first ones that were actually at Paralympic Games. So we have that connection as well. So. But yeah,
let's hope there's a Tokyo 2021.
Yeah, for sure.
Now let's see. What did I want to ask you? Oh yes, my question is: well, now you're going in lockdown again. What will it take for you to start traveling again? Would you travel again, like already as soon as the borders open? Are you, I don't know, maybe waiting for the vaccine? What's your take on this?
Yeah, for domestic travel, I think if we weren't in a state of emergency right now, I would probably travel domestically. Like I said last year, I went to a couple places within Japan, and everybody's very, very cautious and careful. I think it's important to have that balance between, that caution and care, but also, maintaining, normal balance as much as possible. And I think the bigger challenge right now is, definitely the state of emergency, but also just because of where I work, and also there's maybe a lot of social pressure in Japan. So if everybody here is going back home by 8 p.m. and not going to restaurants, and then I was on vacation, or something like that, and then if I did end up getting corona, then I bring it back that I could potentially face a lot of backlash from coworkers. So I'm a little bit more cautious than probably other people. But for myself, I think we're supposed to get the vaccination in starting the end of next month here in Tokyo. And it will start with people who work in care facilities as well as the elderly. So I'll probably be among the first batch of people because of where I work. So that's good. So once I've gotten that, I'd like to move back to travel as much as possible after that. But I don't expect anything international very, very soon. Though maybe for the end of 2021, that'd be nice. But I'm going to hope, but not expect. But it's a good opportunity I think, for people to explore their own communities and countries. Now you don't need to go far to go on vacation. So I think it's a good opportunity for people to go back to their roots and enjoy the places around them as well. So I'm going to do that until I can get back out.
Cool. I wanted to ask you, what's the most alternative place that people can visit in Japan, like foreigners coming for a holiday in Japan? What would you say is the most alternative place, like really completely off the beaten track, but really off the beaten track?
So maybe
according to you,
like that's not in a guidebook kind of thing, or
yeah, like a really place that only the locals know. That
no, I'd say like some places like the Totori. I think it's a little bit harder to get there. But I think for people with disabilities, they have because they're trying to encourage travel so much. They're one of the places where they have taxis. About half of the taxis are all accessible, which is amazing for Japan. And because they have an elderly population as well, so getting around is a big issue. But they also have these discounts where if you're a visitor, you can go for, I think, 3-hour taxi ride for about 2,000 yen, which is about $20, or maybe I don't know how many euros that is. So it's quite, they're trying
18, yeah.
So, I mean, that's something off the beaten path. They have a big ramp up to it, so you can see the sand dunes there, and they also have a buggy for going in the sand as well. So they've done a lot, I think. On the same Japan, the Sea of Japan side, if you go up and to the north, there's a place called Yamagata, which is another prefecture. It's in the northern Japan. And there's a guy there who runs an accessible tour organization. And his biggest thing is paragliding. So he has an accessible paragliding from the hill, or the mountain, I guess, there. So you can sit in it, and somebody will do the steering for you. He has MS, and he set the record for being the longest solo flight in the world. So he's got some great opportunities there. And it's not a place a lot of people go to. So, but you can go in one bullet train from Tokyo. So it's actually pretty easy to get there. And he's actually becoming a politician right now. So he's definitely
good.
Get to know.
Very good.
Yeah, if he gets into, we'll have 3 people in wheelchairs in our government, so our parliament. And after that, personal favorite is Okinawa. As I mentioned before, it's Japan, but it's not Japan. So if you like sunny tropical places, there that all have a flavoring of Japan, then that's definitely an interesting place to go. There's tons of different little islands. It's an archipelago. So there are if you go to Ishigaki, which is one of the islands, I think there's about 5 or 6 big islands there, or some smaller islands that you can go to by ferry. The ferries are more or less accessible. Some of them are more accessible than others, but if you don't mind going over a small gap to get to the boat, then you can do that too. And one of them, it's sort of a traditional way of getting around, is they have these water buffalo that pull these carts that people go on tours on, and one of them is accessible. They have a ramp that comes out the back of it. So there's lots of interesting places to go, and definitely would recommend going outside of Tokyo and Kyoto and Osaka if you get a chance. I mean, those are great places as well, but there are lots of other places off the beaten path that I've to explore.
Super. Thank you. We're going to go now But I wanted to ask you, can you tell our listeners where they can find you online? So all your online references and contacts. There are many, I know.
Yeah, well, I'm probably most active on Twitter. So I'm at Josh Grisdale. And that's probably where I am most active. I have a Facebook account, but I don't really use it other than maybe interacting in groups and stuff like that, but still not that much. But for Accessible Japan, it is accessible-japan.com. So that's but if you search for Accessible Japan, I'll probably be one of the first ones that comes up, I think. Or Accessible Japan.
Yes, definitively. You're the first.
Yeah. And then after that, I would love to invite people to come and join Tabby Folk. It's a community, so the more people we have, the more fun we'll have, but also the more information we can share. So that's tabbyfolk, TABIFOLK.com. So yeah, but any of those places would be great, and would love to interact with people.
Super. Josh, thank you very, very, very much. And I was hoping to come for the Olympics, but let's see. Let's see if they still do them. I really, really hope so. It would be a great chance to see Japan. And in the meantime, I wish stay safe and hope to see you soon.
Yeah, you too. And if you can't make it for the Olympics in 2025, they're having the World Fair in Osaka as well. So
wow,
that's the next stop.
Wow, that's a super thing.
Yeah, so we can meet up there as well too.
Oh yeah, in 2025. Well, let's hope that this situation is solved and well behind.
Okay, thank you.
Super. Big hug. Bye, Josh.
Bye.
Talk soon.
Okay.
Bye.
Okay.
Thank you for coming. All Inclusive is brought to you by Destination Everywhere, a travel company dedicated to travelers of all abilities. For more information and for some really awesome tours all over the world, you can visit our website at www.destinationeverywhere.eu.